Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and in this video here, we're going to be doing something a little bit different because this will be already starting off with a modified PlayStation 3. But in this video here, I'm going to be showing you all, if you have a PlayStation 3 running custom firmware, how you can convert it or essentially install PS3HEN on that system. Now, do keep in mind this is more going to be of a conversion upgrade, just because you cannot have PS3HEN and custom firmware all at once. This is what I've told people, you have to pick one or the other. And in my opinion, if you have to choose one, go with the custom firmware. It's going to be available on cold boot, it's generally more stable, and it gives you full access to your system, which allows you to do some things such as, well, being able to convert it to a development or debug or DEX system, which you cannot do on PS3HEN. So that's also to say, for anybody who might be wondering if they should follow this or why anybody would want to do this video here, well, I'll say right off the bat that this is functionally going to be a downgrade. If you have custom firmware already on your system and you want to upgrade, I'd recommend just updating the custom firmware itself. If you decide to convert it to a PS3HEN system, you will not only lose your jailbreak, but you will lose some functionality, and if you ever do want to install custom firmware again, you'll have to go through the jailbreak process from the beginning, so just keep that in mind. However, some people do like PS3HEN more because they seem to prefer it. They like having the tethered ability more when you can just choose when you want to turn it on or off. Another nice thing is that PS3HEN is open source, so that means that you can build it yourself, upgrade it yourself, but the nice benefit there is that whenever there is a new PS3 update, typically PS3HEN is updated pretty quickly, and you can have a new PS3HEN and HFW on a system before custom firmware is available in case you lose your jailbreak. So that's all to say, if you want to try out PS3HEN or if you prefer PS3HEN for whatever reason, you can follow this guide. However, do keep all of that in mind that, again, if you ever want to install custom firmware again, you'll have to go through the full jailbreak process, and functionally you are going to lose functionality compared to having a custom firmware. And now with the intro and warnings out of the way, let's get to the prerequisites and we'll cover what we're going to need. First of all, you are going to need your PlayStation 3. It needs to be up and running and connected to the internet, and it will already need custom firmware because, again, we're going to go through the whole PS3HEN installation process. You will also have to make sure that your system is running in CEX or retail mode. If it has already been converted to a debug or developer or DEX system, you will have to switch it back to a CEX mode, because you will not be able to do this on DEX. Another thing to keep in mind is if you are one of the unlucky people that has a custom firmware system but you're running something such as a no BT or a no BD variant because you have a broken Blu-ray drive or a broken Bluetooth board, you will not be able to continue on because you will not be able to successfully install HFW. So for your sake, you will have to stay on custom firmware, but again, as I said, functionally that's going to be the better option. However, as long as you have a PS3 which is up and running and working, you're also going to need a USB flash drive, a computer to download a few files and transfer them to the flash drive and to and from our system, and you're also going to need internet, of course, on your computer and on your PS3. The last thing you'll need here is an OEM or original Sony PS3 controller along with a mini USB cable, because at one point we're going to boot up into safe mode so we can do a couple installs of HFW. So with all of that covered here, let's go ahead and move over to our PC and I'm going to show you what you'll need. So let's go ahead and get all of the downloads out of the way here. The first thing that you can do is come over to the official PS3 Exploit Team website, linked down below in the description. And as you can see right here, it's going to show the firmware which PS3HEN is working on. Now, even if you are on the same firmware on your custom firmware, it does not matter because we're going to be installing HFW on here. However, from here, you can typically find the latest HFW and give this a download. I'm going to have a separate link down in the description to the PSX Place article here for an HFW and PS3HEN release, because here you'll be able to get the MD5 hash itself. So you are going to need to give this a download. You can come down to the release page here and you should be able to find the download for this, as well as the MD5, which we should keep on hand. Now, in order to download this, you can just click on this and let it download. and typically it might be uploaded on something such as Mega or another file host site. However, this particular one in this instance here, this might change in the future, but this particular one is hosted on the PS3 exploit site, and you might run into this issue where you click it and nothing happens. If that happens here, if it's a direct link, you just need to right click this and save link as, and save this pup file somewhere you can easily find it. But keep this page on hand because we will need this MD5 hash. In case the HFW file comes as a archive such as a 7-zip or a zip or a RAR file, you can download something like 7-zip and install it. It's easy enough to use, it's free, and it will allow us to extract any software needed. Like I said, you're going to want to keep that other page up with the MD5 hash because we are going to check that firmware before we install it here. And for this, you can use any type of MD5 tool, but I'm going to be using this one here because it's online and easy enough to use. And finally, if you've been using a modified PS3 for any amount of time, you should know how to format a USB drive for it, but just in case, or if you run into an issue here, we're going to be using Rufus for the format. You can just come down here and download either the 64-bit variant or the 32-bit x86 variant for your machine, whichever install you have of Windows, or just grab the portable version if you have 64-bit. Once we have our downloads completed, there's really only two files we need to focus on. The first one here is going to be Rufus to set up our USB drive. You can double click this, and if you get this prompt here, you'll want to say yes, and you can allow to check for updates if you wish to. Now do keep in mind, when you format your USB drive accordingly, it is going to destroy any data that you care about, so you will want to back up any data that you care about before you do this step. But plug in your flash drive, it should show up here and you can select it, and if it does not show up, you can come to Show Advanced Drive Properties and enable List USB Hard Drives. However, mine is showing up, so I'm not too worried about it. But for boot selection, you want to say non-bootable. For the partition scheme, this must be MBR since we're on a PS3. Volume label can be anything. And then for the file system, we need to pick FAT32, or if large FAT32 comes up, that's fine, but it must be FAT32. Once we have MBR and FAT32 selected, when you're ready to format, you can hit start. And as long as you understand all the data will be erased on here, you can click OK, give it a few moments, and it's going to format your USB drive. And once this has been completed, we can now click on close, and we're done formatting. The next step is going to be to copy over the accompanying update file. You want to go to your USB drive, and we're going to create a new folder in the root of it called PS3, all uppercase, all one word. Inside the PS3 folder, we have to create a new folder, and we're going to call this one, all uppercase, all one word, update. Once that's been created, go into the update folder and copy and paste the HFW file that you've downloaded. Give it a few seconds to copy over. Now once it's done copying over, we are going to have to rename it here. So you can right click and rename this, and we're going to change the name to ps3updat.pup. It has to be exactly like this, and if you're on Windows, go to View, Show, and make sure you enable file name extensions, because it has to be ps3updat.pup. Again, that's going to be in the PS3 folder, the update folder, ps3updat.pup. And as long as you have that format set up accordingly, your USB drive should detect properly on your PS3. However, one last thing we have to do here is check the MD5 hash. For this, you can open up your MD5 file checksum website here and click on drop file here. Now you do not want to go to the downloaded file, you want to go to your USB drive itself. So you can go to the USB drive, PS3, update, ps3updat.pup, double click that, and give it a few moments to hash. And once it's done, it should give you a series of numbers and letters. You'll now want to compare this to the MD5 hash which has been supplied from the website or the download that you got this from. And do keep in mind this is not case sensitive. So for example, if you are worried about a capital C and a capital B right here, it doesn't matter. The letters and numbers just have to match between this expected MD5 and the MD5 hash right here. And as long as the letters and numbers are matching, then you have a good update that has been downloaded and copied over. Now, if for whatever reason you are getting a mismatching hash, I'd recommend deleting this file, re-downloading it, and copying it back over to the USB drive. And finally, if you're watching this in the future and it's not a direct pup that you are downloading, like it's a zip or an archive or something else, you will have to right-click that, use 7-zip, and extract it out. And do keep in mind you have to get the actual update pup file. You do not want to check the zip or the 7-zip file or the RAR archive. You have to extract and actually check the PUP file itself. However, now that we are all good at this point with the update, we can right click, eject our USB drive, and take it over to our PS3. When you're over at the PS3, we'll need to do 2 updates of this here. It would be recommended to do that just so you make sure ROS 0 and ROS 1 values on your internal flash are matching. So in order to do this, plug in your USB flash drive, navigate over to either the music or the photo column, and you need to look for your USB drive. As long as it has been detected and showing, that means that you have set it up properly. So with all of that done, we can come over to settings and we can try one of our updates. Now scroll up to system update, go down to update via storage media, and it should find your update here. Now go ahead, tap the X button on that and wait. And it's now going to copy over the update data and then reboot the system into our system update mode. Now do keep in mind right here, there are some custom firmwares which do not allow or might have issues updating through the XMB. So if you get to the next step here and it ends up failing to update, I'm going to show you how to update within safe mode, and that should work if this method through the XMB does not work. But you will want to do 2 updates, whether both are through the XMB, both are through safe mode, or one is in the XMB and one is through safe mode. When your system does a soft reboot into the system update mode, just tap the PlayStation button on your controller, and after a bit, the update should begin. As you can see, it's now installing. Now when you're at this screen here, the expected behavior should be, it should get partway through the update and then jump to 100% and then reboot. If it does that, then that means it is successful. However, again, as I said, if you get some kind of error here that stops you from updating, you'll want to try this in safe mode, which I'm going to show right after this. Now, after a bit, your system should reboot, and if it was done successfully, you should have HFW, but your console will no longer be modified. Do keep in mind though, we are going to be resolving that here, but you will not be able to use any of your homebrew applications or re-signed games if you have any installed. However, we'll be working on that. But we do need to do one more update with HFW. So as I said, once you get to this point here, we would now be recommended to try this out in safe mode. That's either if you need to do another install or if the first install did not work for you. For that, go ahead, fully power down your PS3, grab your controller and connect it to your console. When your console is fully powered down, physically go to the system, press the power button on it and hold it down until the console turns off. When it turns off, press and hold the power button again and wait until you hear 2 quick beeps. And once you hear those 2 quick beeps, release the power button. You should come to this screen here telling you to hook up the controller through USB and press the PlayStation button. Once you do that, come down to System Update, tap the X button, and it's now going to prompt for a system update yet again. So press Start and select at the same time while your USB drive is still inserted. It's now going to begin checking that USB drive for your firmware update. After it copies over the update and does another reboot, it should bring you to this screen here where you can press the PlayStation button, and it's going to begin checking for that update yet again. From here, walk through the process of the user agreement. As long as you agree to it, you can accept it, and then tap the X button here to begin installing HFW. And just like I said before, it would be most recommended to do 2 full installs of HFW, whether both of them are through the XMB, both of them are through safe mode, or one of them is in safe mode and one of them is in the XMB. It does not matter as long as you get 2 good installations to continue. Once your system reboots out of safe mode, you should get this option here in which you can say yes. And once again here at this screen, say yes, and you can now continue on. So at this point, again, you should have 2 successful installations of HFW, but your PS3 will not be in a modified state. So we're now going to work on the process of getting PS3HEN installed. Now before we install PS3HEN, there's going to be a few settings that we're going to need to change here. We'll need to navigate over to the settings option, go to system settings, and first of all, set automatic update to off. This should have been disabled if you had custom firmware, as it is recommended, but make sure it's off here so you do not lose your PS3HEN installation in the future. The next thing is going to be display what's new. It would be recommended to also turn this off. Next, we need to navigate over to the browser itself. So we can X out of here, go over to the internet browser, and open it up. Once the internet browser is open, tap the triangle button, go up to Tools, go into Confirm Browser Close, and say Off. Next, go into Tools yet again, and set your home page to Use Blank Page, then come down, hit OK. Go to Tools once more, and now you need to delete your cookies, We're also going to need to delete the search history. We'll need to delete the cache. And finally, we're going to delete the authentication information. And once that's all been cleaned up, press the circle button to exit out of your browser, so you should now have a nice clean browser to work out of. We're now officially going to start the process of installing PS3HEN on our system, but do keep this warning in mind here from the PS3 exploit team. And this is going to be big, especially if you're coming from custom firmware. Do not enable FSM factory service mode with PS3HEN. Do not install CC API with PS3HEN. Now do keep in mind, these are both things that you cannot really do accidentally. However, many custom firmware users are going to be familiar with CC API. So keep this in mind, you cannot use CC API and you cannot go into factory service mode on PS3HEN. Doing either one of these two can damage your system. You've been warned at this point. Now let's continue on. Now that you're starting with a clean browser, go ahead, open up the internet browser, and we're going to hit the PS3 exploit site. For this, tap the start button on your controller, delete everything here, and this is the exact website we're going to go to. It will be http://ps3exploit.me. Now do keep in mind, this is HTTP, not HTTPS, and PS3 exploit is missing the E. This is an intentional misspelling. So http://ps3exploit.me. Once you have that dialed in, come over to start, enter, and wait for the website to load. Once it loads in on your PlayStation 3, it should look like this. Tap the select button on your controller and add this to your bookmarks for future safekeeping. Now we can close out of this, and we're now going to come up to the corner here where it says PS3HEN, and we're going to go to the HEN auto installer. Tap the X button on this and wait for the page to load up. It's now going to automatically download a file, and once that's done, we can hit back. And now instead of continuing on, we're going to hit the select button and add this to our bookmarks. Once that's been added, close out of here and close out of the browser. We're doing this so we can hopefully get the best success rate of setting this up. And now to give that page a shot, we can open up our browser hopefully one last time for this procedure. And once it opens up, tap the select button, go down to the PS3HEN auto installer and tap the X button. You'll come right to this page, and you can overwrite and save this file if you wish to. Once this has been downloaded, press back, and all you have to do at this point is tap the X button on Auto Install HEN, and give it a few moments. Now it should automatically say that it has been initialized successfully. If it was successful, then it will say it's installing HEN. It'll give you an update saying welcome to PS3HEN, close out, and it's now going to begin downloading a package file. Just give it a few moments to download this. Now as a heads up here, in case you end up getting an error, for example, it keeps trying to load that page and it's not able to initialize and you get an error, if you are not able to successfully initialize that page, go ahead, fully reboot your system, bring it back up, go back into the browser, open up that page directly from the bookmark and try again. It might take a few tries. Once the download is complete, tap the back button on your controller and give it a few moments to install. You do not need to touch the controller at this point, just let it finish the installation. And here we go. Once the install is done, you should get a prompt saying installation complete, prepare for reboot, let the system automatically reboot. And here we go. Your system should be rebooted successfully. It should have a new splash screen, and at this point, you now have PS3HEN installed. Now do keep in mind, your system has been remodified with PS3HEN, but unlike custom firmware, PS3HEN is tethered, meaning that every single time you do a cold boot, or if you play a PS2 game and exit out of it, you will always have to enable HEN. So in order to enable HEN, you just have to tap the X button on enable HEN and wait. It is going to bring up the browser and it's now going to enable HEN. Once it has been enabled, it should exit out and you should automatically have your package manager. Now there are going to be some times where you might enable HEN and the package manager does not show up. You'll just have to try to enable HEN again or reboot the system and enable HEN a second time. Another thing to keep in mind is if you are playing a game here or an application and you exit out of it, the enable HEN is going to disappear, but the package manager will be on screen. As long as the package manager is showing up on your XMB, that means that HEN is enabled. But yet again, if you ever reboot your system, come out of a cold boot, or if you play a PlayStation 2 game and exit out of it, you will always have to re-enable HEN to get to a modified state. Now, one thing to keep in mind specifically for people coming from custom firmware is your webMAN mod might no longer be there. If that is the case, you will have to go to the package manager, install package files, PS3 system storage, and install the webMAN mod, which is showing right here. That is done on purpose, but it is easy enough. They do package it in, thankfully, with that HEN download, so you just have to install it from here. And once that's been installed, just like before, we can hit the back button, go down to our webMAN mod installer, and I recommend holding down the L1 button for the full experience. Hold it down, tap the X button, and keep it held down until the system reboots. So now our console has rebooted, but just like I explained, you are going to need to always enable HEN. So since we have just rebooted our system, you'll just need to enable HEN, and you should be able to continue on here. As you can see, HEN is going to be enabled, and we should have webMAN mod pop back up, so we now have access to our webMAN games. And you might also hear your fan ramp up in speed a bit. The nice thing is here too, which many people have been worried about, all of your data should stay here. So for example, I can go to webMAN games, and I have a few PS2 games and a few PS3 games. However, do keep in mind, one of the limitations of PS3HEN is that you have to play PS2 games as encrypted ISOs, or package files that have been encrypted. So unfortunately, I already know that the PS2 games, despite them being on here, will not work on my PS3HEN installation. But if I want to, I can come here, I can load up one of these games like House the Dead Overkill, it's able to mount it, and I'm able to boot it up just fine like any other game. I also have a few games that I installed before that were re-signed, so one of the great ones here, Scott Pilgrim. Let's go ahead, give this a shot, and make sure it works. And as you can see right here, the game was able to boot up successfully because, like I said, this was a game that I had re-signed before to this system, and it was able to continue to work just fine. Really, out of my games and applications, there might be some applications you'll have to update if you're coming from an older custom firmware, but aside from that, my games here should work just fine, aside from my PS2 ISOs, which, as I said, that is a limitation of PS3HEN requiring them to be encrypted. Let's go ahead and exit out of this. Anyways, that is about it for this video here. Hopefully it helped out. Hopefully you were able to enjoy yourself, have some fun, maybe learn something new along the way, and you should hopefully have a PS3HEN enabled system, which is now working at your fingertips. So you can have some fun with it, make use of PS3HEN, take advantage of something maybe newer compared to the custom firmware you are coming from. However, do keep in mind, as I said before, at this point now, if you do want to install a custom firmware, you will have to go through the full jailbreak process. However, I'm also going to have a video that will kind of boil this down, this specific instance here, and show you all how you can take a PS3HEN system and convert it to a custom firmware system. And usually with these types of videos, I do like to give a big thank you and shout out to the PS3 Exploit team for making all of this possible here. Not only we have PS3HEN, which does make the impossible possible, which allows us to run homebrew on any model of the PlayStation 3, but on top of that, having their website so easily accessible is an absolutely awesome thing. If you do want to support them there, you can see their donation links, and they will be on their website, which will be linked down below in the description. Anyways, that is about it for this video here. This is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated, and if you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too.